What is up, everybody? We are back with another little how-to video here. My name is Rick. I hope you're having a wonderful day today from Cast Cray Outdoors. Hey, we want to go over some rigging methods on trick worms, right? So trick worm is one of the newest baits that we just recently published. You'll find these on our website, castcray.com. We got about 42 different colors that we're in the process of getting all on the website. But a lot of you have asked recently, how do you rig it up, Rick? What are your kind of favorite rigging methods? Now, I'm sure there's going to be some additional rigging methods, but I'll show you what I do, and we'll kind of get close here and show you what's up. Now, usually what I do is I like to Texas rig these guys. So let me get my bearing. There we go. So what that means is we'll just kind of put an EWG on, which we have extra wide gap hooks. Let me show you here. We have these in 1/0 through 5/0. So if you're interested, the glare is bad there. I apologize. We got 1/0 through 5/0 available. These are the offset shank EWGs. What I like to do is just rig it down here, straight to the end of the barb there. And then what you want to do is just pop it out the bottom, like so. Run it all the way to the end. Now you're going to have your line here tied up, right? But you're going to want to conceal your hook a little bit. So after you tie your line to this eyelet, you're going to want to pull this worm up and over and conceal that line completely like that. Now, you'll notice that as I did that, this little offset, it popped out the bottom like that. Now, that's for rigging it weedless. And what we're going to do is, I like to put my nail at the very end like this of where it's going to pop out. Now, that's my guide to poke it in. Make sense? So as I'm feeding it directly through the top of that, I like to text pose this, and that means just skin mounting it. So as you're feeding it through, you're kind of pinching a little bit up, and you're wanting to kind of rig it into that skin. So now it's nice and weedless. It's a text pose hook. It's popping out a little bit so that as the bass comes and wants to crunch that thing from the bottoms, from the depths, it gets all hooked up there. Now, this is how you would traditionally rig a trick worm, right? Now, what I like to do is I like to use some weight. Now, we have a couple different weight options. We have these, which will be on the website here very soon. These are lead bullet weights. You can use a lead bullet weight, or you can use tungsten. Now, the benefits of using tungsten is it weighs a lot more. So you can get it a lot smaller profile, and you can get it to drop down in the depths a lot quicker by having a tungsten weight on. So it's really, really cool. So I prefer tungsten. You're going to see, because of the density and the rarity of tungsten metals versus something like lead, you're going to see a price difference in it. But the value is there. So let's see here. This is a 3/16, which is my most common size that I personally use. There's the same in lead. So you can kind of see the difference there as far as size is concerned, what the difference looks like in weight, but literally about the same weight there. So what you're going to want to do is, some folks like to allow this weight to slide on their line back and forth, and they don't pin it, what's called pinning. Now, what I like to do is pin it, because I don't want this thing to slide up and down. The benefit of doing that is if you're dropping it into little holes, you're draping it over holes, you have the ability to kind of let that weight fall first down in the hole, and then this kind of zips right down to it. So it gives a whole new action to it. Try it sometime. It's pretty cool. But what I like to do is I like to pin this weight directly to the nose of that worm. And the way in which you do that is you use what's called a bobber stop. Now, we have these available as well. You can get these on the website. But the way that these work is, let me get this out of the pack here. You'll find that there's a little hole. See a little hole there, like a little loop in the bobber stop. And you're going to want to feed your line into the end of that loop. Once you do so, you grab this little rubber stop and slide it off onto your line, and it's going to transfer to your line. Now, after you transfer that stop to your line, you're going to want to do that first. So that's the first thing to go on your line. You're going to want to slide your bullet weight on first. Small side first. Slide that all the way on. So we'll just pretend here that this bobber stop is on our line. Then we got our bullet weight. Now next is when, after you slide that in small side first, you're going to tie your line onto this. Now, if you have an interest in the knot that I prefer, I actually did a how-to video prior. You'll want to scroll down here on YouTube or Facebook, and you'll see that video. I did it with big, bold rope just to show you how I would tie the knot that I use, which is like a dead man's knot or a noose. It works awesome. So once you tie that onto your eyelet here, you're going to want to, like I said earlier, conceal that with the rubber worm, conceal your knot. Now, there's nothing that the line can possibly get snuck or snagged on as you're reeling the sucker in. There's no weeds or anything that it's going to get caught on. So that's what that looks like. Now you have a weighted Texas rig trick worm, ready to rock and roll, ready to hit the water. Now, a couple other methods that I like to use when rigging a trick worm is the same thing that we just talked about, but weightless completely. So obviously you're going to need a lighter line. Your heavier lines are not going to allow you really to get this baby out there with no weight on it. But use a lighter line, cast it out on those weed mats, kind of drag it on top, and any hole, just kind of slowly drop it into that hole and let this sucker just kind of fall down naturally. Fire, rig, fire. Also, I'll show you a couple things. You could use this Wacky tool. Now, most of the time you see a Wacky rig, you see them on something like almost like a Senko style or a stick bait. The way that this tool works is you literally would slide your worm into the hole on the bottom there, slide it up about halfway, okay? And then you're sliding one of these little rubber washers off the end of this tool and transferring that washer to the worm. So now there's like a little washer around the worm. Instead of pinning your hook directly to the worm, like rigging an EWG hook directly to the middle of the worm and it ripping, it adds a little extra strength there for you as you're fishing this worm. So instead of just kind of pinning it, which you can very well do right there in the middle like that, that's a Wacky rig traditionally, you can use those O-rings or the Wacky rig tool to put a nice O-ring, like little washer on there, and pin it to that washer. Now you're adding all kinds of strength so that as the bass bites here, it's not ripping it as easily. Now, a couple other, as you Wacky rig, we have these nail weights that you can use. I'm not sure if you've ever seen nail weights, but nail weights are awesome for what you call a Nico rig. So the difference between a Nico and a Wacky rig, if you're following along, is literally just a nail weight on the end. So as you're Wacky rigging like a show, use your EWG hook like so, pin it right to the middle like I just did here. Use one of those O-rings if you want a little extra beef. Grab the fatter end of that trick worm, take this nail weight, and pin it right to the tip. And all you're going to do is stab that weight right down in. Now you have a Nico rig. So as you're casting this out, this weight is going to want to pin to the bottom. And as you're dragging, this top appendage is going to be wanting to stay up. So you're going to drag it, and it's going to kind of wiggle on the bottom like this. It's an absolute fire way to present these rigs, these worms. Last but not least, I want to show you one other method that we use down in the river. I like to use a 1/4 ounce head, something like a show, standard round 1/4 ounce head. And what you want to do is feed it on just like you would a crappie bait or any jig, a grub. Feed it up to the desired length and get right past that keeper. Push it on in. Now you got a jig head rigged up with the trick worm. You cast that baby out there in the rivers, in the lakes. You bounce that off. Now, obviously, it's not weedless. You're going to want to fish rocks with this, maybe the breakwalls up off Lake Erie, like clear lakes or also rocky banks. This is an absolute banger when it comes to rigging the trick worm. So hopefully that was helpful, guys. That's just a couple ways in which I would rig the trick worm. If you're new to Cast Cray, we just launched the trick worm. We have it, like I said, in 42 colors at castcray.com. If you're interested, you can order right here at castcray.com. Remember also that if you have any suggested topic, we'd love to hear it. Go ahead and submit your topic request to info, I-N-F-O, at castcray.com. Thanks for listening to another episode of How To. We will do this again. I'll look for more topics. We appreciate you joining in. Have a wonderful day. Toodaloo.